Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I thought I'd do an update on the Holey pots collection. I've also noticed I've just watered them all and a couple haven't got tags in, and off the top of my head I don't know what they are. I do indirectly, because all I've got to do is go to my notes and check. You know, I can memorise the ones that have got tags, and what's left is the ones that haven't. Have a look at my notes and work out which one's which. So we'll start with one with no tag. Get that one out of the way. This one's coming on. I mean, it has got a new growth and it is pushing a new root system out. It's also got, I'll kill two birds with one stone if I can. Somebody asked me about looking at dormant or semi-dormant eyes on plants and how do you actually identify them. Well, if you look at the base of the growth that's now on the left, there's a dormant eye at the base on the left and the right. You see just above those two roots, that shape on the side of the cane is a dormant eye, and the one on the left is not so dormant, because I think that one's actually starting to move. They swell and then they start to extend, and then they turn into that, a new growth. So whatever that is recovering from whatever bad root system or whatever I've forgotten until I get to my notes. Now I need to put that one to one side to put a tag on it. I'll just stick it on the floor for a minute. Okay, that's that one out of the way. Now we get back to these. Now this is the no ID hybrid that has the big blousy magenta flowers on that finished blooming not that long ago. It had two pairs of blooms. It's got a nice strong new growth coming that's probably about half size, and at this point on this Cattleya it's now pushing out its new roots. So again, update my notes so that I know for next time. Now next time's going to be a long way off. The whole idea of putting them in the Holey pots was that they stay in here for a long time and don't get disturbed anymore. Now again, on the dormant eye front, if you look at the cane that's the large one in the centre, at the base of that, that's a dormant eye. And then if you look at the one that's now on the left of the shot, there's another eye at the base of that one that's sticking out a bit. So that one looks like it might take off. Any dormant eyes can go at any time. Basically, it's not that predictable. A lot of it depends on what else is going on the plant. Like, is it in bloom? Is it pushing up a strong new growth and producing new roots? Because if it is, that's where most of its energy is going, which doesn't leave a lot to push out dormant eyes. However, if it had one hell of a root system that could easily support the new growth and some more new roots, then it may push out dormant eyes at the same time. And then you get multiple new growths, which would be nice. Anyway, that's a no ID. Nice Cattleya, one of my nice big blousy ones. This is going to be fun. I'm going to end up tripping over myself here. Right, now this one has come on leaps and bounds. This is Laelia anceps. As I go through these, if there are pictures of blooms, I'll put the pop-ups and repeat the name on the screen so that you can see it. Now this one did not like being on a mount. It just didn't. Yeah. The roots just kept failing. They kept pushing out and just stopping. They didn't die as such, they just didn't grow. But since it's gone in its Holey pot, the oldest cane has pushed out roots. Now that hopefully will preempt a new growth, but at the moment I can't see one. See, there is an eye there, but that's dead. But nonetheless, it might develop another one from lower down. This one's got no sign of any eyes. That's its oldest bulb, so no sign of anything there. But this growth back here is pushing out two nice strong growths. Now it's a long way off blooming at this point. You know, these two new growths are just setting off into the world with their new roots underneath. Yeah, all going all round the pot. I think this one's even escaping from the pot in places. No, not this one. But it's now establishing a much better root system than it ever had on the mount. So this one likes being in a pot. Well, it likes being in this pot. So there we go, 2 nice strong new growths. If both of those bloom, because they're roughly the same size, if they're going to bloom, they're probably going to bloom together. Now the last time this one bloomed, I had 4 blooms. They're enormous, and the spikes are incredibly long. I think my spike was about, what was, a metre, if not more, with 4 large pretty blooms on the top. So if that can do the same off of both of those new ones, I'm going to be over the moon. But that's a long way off. I can't see that happening this year. You know, given that those bulbs have got to fully mature before it even starts a spike, and the spike takes an age to grow and get buds and then bloom. It's going to be next year sometime, I suspect. So it's a long way off, but well worth the wait. So that's Laelia anceps. That's doing fine. More than happy with that one. Well, not everything's doing fine. This is the Ivanagara apple blossom. Now, this is not long out of bloom, and since the blooms came off, it's starting to produce new roots, and it's doing them at the base of the one that's just finished blooming. Okay, so no new roots on that one while it was in bloom, but now the blooms have gone, I do have new roots. This didn't have a very good root system. Now, I don't know what this one's going to do. I mean, this was obviously the newest growth, but those eyes don't look very good, but they may push on later. If not, I don't see any signs of eyes or new growths anywhere on that plant at the moment. So this might have a strange cycle. I haven't had the plant enough years to know, and it was in a poor state when I got it. It recovered a bit and then it bloomed, and now it's off into this sort of state. But the fact is, it's growing some nice new roots. Yeah, so it's going to do something once those roots are established, and hopefully it's going to produce a new growth from that latest lead. As I said, if it doesn't do that, I just don't know what it is going to do. But we wait and see. You know, the new roots now start getting more energy into the plant, which means it can think about doing something else, and the only something else left is push up a new growth. It'd be nice if it pushed up too, but we shall have to wait and see. Well worth owning this one, but a note of caution. This one does not like the same light that normal Cattleyas do. You do, and you'll do that to it. I caught it. It was too near the glass, and the bit that was near the glass was that bit. Yeah? Just about got away with the older leaves back here. I mean, okay, that is the oldest pseudo bulb on this plant, so, you know, those 2 leaves aren't absolutely essential. But, yeah, I mean, if that had been there much longer, the next set would have probably gone as well. So, take care if you've got one of these. They're not a high light Cattlea. You know, they still like good light, but not as intense as some of the other Cattleyas can take. Otherwise, you singe the leaves. Yeah? That's not what they're meant to look like. They're meant to be green like this. Okay, that's Laelia anceps. And while I've got this one out, a non-Cattlea, this is my Prosthecheas, and this is green Hornet. Now this one stalled. It just didn't seem to want to grow any new growths, and it didn't seem to want to do much with its root system. But then on the latest growth, it did push up the flower spike, which is now doing okay. And it's just actually starting to go. Now, I'm sure last time that bloomed, it lasted longer than that. And if you remember in a video not that long ago, I said that these spikes extend. Yeah, well, they don't. The green Hornet is a hybrid, and it's a non-extending type. I was thinking of the species that it's crossed with, which is Cattleyas, I think it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. But those spikes, you know, they open and then they start growing more buds, and they carry on as the old ones drop off. But this one doesn't. I made a mistake there. Wishful thinking, I think. But anyway, down in here, we've got a new growth right on the end of my finger there, and another one there. That one's pushing on nicely. That one's obviously quite visible. That one's only just starting. And we've got another new growth round here, and we've got some good roots starting to push out in places. So again, this one seems a lot happier in this pot than it ever did before. So coming on nicely. It's not a bad plant. That's the only growth that's failed for me. It's not a bad size for this plant, but it formed its sheath and did nothing with it. That's the first time it's done that. And then the following growth here pushed up a sheath and then promptly pushed out a spike and blooms. So I don't know what went wrong with that one, but it happens. That's life. Okay, as Cattleya plants go, this isn't a bad plant. The leaves are in quite good condition, because they have to last the plant a long time on Cattleyas, 5-6 years sometimes before the leaves become redundant, shall we say. Now, this one bloomed not that long ago. It's a nice big blousy orange one, quite nice. But that growth started and promptly failed. Just stopped growing. Again, I don't know why. But luckily, it pushed one out the other side, so it has got a new growth. This has got a good root system. It's pushing out the side of the pot. You can see it all through the holes there. So it's got a strong root system. So only one new growth on a plant with a root system like that is a little unusual. So I'm hoping that one might start to grow, or that one might start to grow, to go with the other one that it's got. Oh, now the fans are going to kick on. Well, that obviously means it's getting warmer in here, which is good. Okay, so that's that one. As I say, it's a no ID, just a Cattleya hybrid again. But it's a nice bloom, it's a nice colour, and it's not a bad looking plant. It's doing okay. So why it did that, I really don't know. It didn't like something at that point and just killed that new growth. I just hope it doesn't do the same with any of the others. One that's on its way and others looking like they might. I'm pretty sure that one's going to grow. It's got that look about it. You get to know after a while which ones are just going to sit there and do absolutely nothing, probably forever, and those that look like they're going to move. And that one looks like it's going to move, and that one, not so sure. But we'll see. I mean, I have got one definite new growth and one probable and one possible. So we'll see how it goes. But one definite, that'll do for now. Okay, this one's a biggie. This is the one I got at the auction at the Orchid Society not long ago, and it went relatively cheap because that new growth had broken and it was blatantly obvious. And this new growth at the time was tiny. Yeah, well, it's pushing on nicely now. Again, it didn't have the best of root systems, but it did have one. I mean, as you can see, I've just watered it. These roots are the older roots going down into the pot. They're hydrating fine. So, it's a plant that's capable of growing. It's got older roots, but they still work. They're still fine. They're still good, firm, fleshy roots. And although I can't see it, I'm relatively confident that those roots down in the pot are probably pushing out some new root tips. They're branching. Can't say definitely, I'm guessing. But look at that one. That's the branch off of this root, and it is growing a new tip. So I suspect the same thing's going on down there. Right, as far as new growths are concerned, one broken and one pushing on. And quite honestly, no sign of any more at the moment. So I may well have to put up with just the one on this till it becomes well established in this pot. Now, this one obviously hasn't bloomed for me. I've only just got it, but I did Google the pictures and they are very attractive. Otherwise I wouldn't have got it. So I'm looking forward to a bloom on this, on that new growth, however far away that is. Now we're going to get fogged as well. It's all going on here, isn't it? Okay, I'll see how I get on. In fact, I'm going to shut that one off, because that drifts all over me otherwise. And although I don't mind it, I'm sure the camera doesn't like it that much. I like to keep the camera dry, obviously. Right, moving on. Oh, I forgot to say what it is, didn't I? It has got a tag. It is, I think it was Angel Heart. Yeah, Cattleyas Angel Heart. So you can look up the blooms if you like, but they are attractive. And this is a biggie, you know, as Cattleyas go. I mean, that's my arm, yeah. I don't know what I'm filming here, I'm just pointing the camera, shot in the dark. But it's a large Cattleyas. This was the largest growth. That one did bloom. This was a smaller growth, but it still bloomed. See the remnants of the spike. So how big this one's going to get, I don't know. But if it can get to that big, it should bloom. If it gets to that big, it may have more blooms on. It's not always the case, but normally with Cattleyas, the bigger and stronger the cane, the more blooms you get. That's why often you get just, it's probably just the lack of light and things like that, but if you get a Cattleyas cane that matures towards the end of the autumn and it then moves on into winter in the UK with the short days to produce its blooms, you may well get less blooms at that time of year because the plant isn't doing much. You know, its days are so short that it's got a conflict of interest. It's trying to stay relatively dormant and not do much because it hasn't got enough light, and yet it's got buds forming which it needs to try and push on. So you often get less. Sometimes you just get smaller canes and they don't even bloom, but it just depends how they go. That's another no tag one, but I do know what this one is because it's a relatively new plant, and it's the one I got from Equigenera at Malvern. It's a Laelia. The name's not going to come. I've just tried and it's not going to come, so it'll be a pop-up. But I mean, I got this on the grounds that it didn't have the best root system, but what it did have is 2 strong new growths pushing on, and they have grown since I got this home. So the plant is supporting those 2 new growths, and at some point both of those new growths will produce new roots, but I don't know when. It's a new plant. They might start producing roots soon. They might start producing roots when they get near maturity. They might not produce those new roots until after those shoots bloom, if they do, after they're fully matured, in which case it's got to survive on the root system it's got. But I don't know yet, it's too new. One thing I can almost certainly say is that sheath is probably not going to come of anything. Can't say definitely. I mean, it's still green, it's on a hell of a good cane, it's got good leaves on this plant, so good photosynthesis going on. But at the moment, it's probably using most of the strength it's got to produce those new growths. So it would have to have spare to be able to produce buds in that sheath. And I don't know whether it's got enough spare on the root system it's got. So it depends when the roots come. If these new growths start pushing roots soon, and they really get a hold in the pot, it might trigger this to bloom. But I doubt it. I'm probably just going to have to wait for these 2. And that's going to be a while. Like I say, you know, it's going to take a while for these 2 new growths to get to this size and be mature. That's the rest of this year, I suspect. And again, long spikes on Laelias, so they take quite a while to shoot out, develop and form their buds and open. So that's a next year job again. That's a long wait, isn't it? Still, that's how we go. But I've been after this one for a while. It had been on my list for a while, and when I spotted it, I thought, I'm having that. And then I looked at the plant and I thought, ooh, shall I? And I thought, I'll blow it. It wasn't ridiculously expensive, and I had to come home from Malvern with something. And as I say, when you find one that's been on your list for quite a long time, and it just doesn't come up, and you then see one, sometimes you take a bit of a risk, and it's not the best plant in the world, but it's better than some I've bought in the past. So I'm pleased it's coming on. Okay, this is Young Min Orange, and again, I left this in the pot a little bit too long, and it did lose some of its older roots as a consequence, but there were still viable roots when I got round to repotting it after it had bloomed. This was a mass showing earlier in the year. I think it was either 5 or 6 of these canes were in bloom at the same time, with about half a dozen lovely orange blooms on each spike. So this was a mass showing. Now obviously I'm not going to achieve that next time round, because where I've repotted it and disturbed it, a little bit of a setback. But nonetheless, it's producing a nice strong new growth on this side of the plant with associated new roots, and it's producing another one round this side of the plant. So I've got 2 nice strong new growths at the moment. There's a possibility of another one coming up there, and possibly even another one down there, but I don't think those eyes are going to shoot on the root system it's got. I think it will just probably concentrate on those 2 this time round, and then maybe later it'll start thinking about some extra new growths. But it's a nice plant. I mean, it's got good leaves on it, and a couple of leaves now becoming, yeah, old leaves. I mean, that one can be trimmed off, which I will do in a minute. But you know, these are the old tiny little pseudo bulbs from where you can see the progression on this plant. It's reasonably obvious, you know, starting sort of like that, gradually moving up to the larger canes that bloomed nicely. So all I've got to do is get these 2 new ones up to that sort of size, and I should get half a dozen blooms on each one, and probably at the same time, because they're roughly together. So that would be good. There's a lovely eye there on that cane. I wonder if that one will push. But it's already got one growing on the other side of it. Whether it'll actually have the strength to push that one as well, I don't know. There's another eye there as well. So there's plenty around, it's just whether it can find the strength to push those on or not. At the moment, it's happy doing those 2 and producing some new roots. And I'm quite happy with that too. That's that one. I'm going to show this plant, and then a still is going to pop up of the equivalent plant at the visit to the Rithlington school. I'm pretty sure I've got that still. If I have, it's going to pop up now. Well, it either did or it didn't. And until I put the video together, I'm not going to know. So I'll carry on as though it did. Now you can see about what hope is all about. This is Encyclia prismata carpa. Yeah? I have 2 pseudo bulbs and a new growth. That's what I've got. How long do you think it's going to be before it gets to the size of the one hopefully I've just shown you? 15 years? Maybe 20? So that's what we aim at. You know, if you think you're going to get specimen plants of most of the orchids we grow in a couple of years, quite honestly you need to think again, because it ain't going to happen. It takes time. You know, to build up that sort of size plant takes time. A long time in some cases. But anyway, we live in hope. I'm just hoping that this one doesn't keel over, because it's lost a new growth a while ago. But since it went in this pot, it's coming on now. That's a good strong new growth coming up there. Now hopefully that one will mature. It may even bloom on that growth, who knows. But it's doing some good roots coming out the holes in the pot. Yeah, so it's establishing a good root system, and that'll help support pushing that new growth, even though it's got leaves, so it can photosynthesize on the old 2. But yeah, it's swelling nicely, but it doesn't grow very fast, or this one isn't anyway. But at least it's growing. That's the main thing. But this is a long way off any form of a specimen plant. But I'd be just pleased to get that growth to mature, and even if it produces one flower, it's progress, because it's never bloomed for me yet. So come on, get a move on. And last but not least, this is Prosthecheas garciana species again, and this was a very large plant on a mount that just decided not to grow well. bad attack of scale, that didn't help, and it just produced new growths that just didn't mature properly. I'll show you an example. See the distorted leaves? And it started doing this on a regular basis, and basically it just wasn't getting enough hydration. And talk of scale, there's a couple appearing on this again, so I'm going to have to deal with that. The last thing this thing needs is some more active scale. But the roots just weren't hydrating properly on the mount, because most of them became aerial and they just weren't hydrating. But it seems to be doing better in a pot, but it's difficult to tell yet. It hasn't been in there long. What I'm watching are the latest new growths to see if they push on clean. But it has managed to flower. It hasn't done that for a very, very long time. These are very attractive blooms. They are fragrant. Yeah, lovely markings. I've got a feeling these are marked on the back too. Yep, pretty patterns on the back. But it's another one of these upside down plants. Yeah, I mean, if I literally turn that camera upside down now, it would look like a normal orchid. But it's an upside down orchid, you know, that's how they are. It's just a trait. And I got a feeling, no, I thought there might be a bud in that sheath as well, but no. But I've got to watch these new growths and see if they push on. Now if they do, and they don't get all distorted like this one, they should all bloom when they get to their mature size. It's quite a quick grower when it's growing well, but it isn't growing that well at the moment. But it is in a state of recovery. It was in quite a bad way, and it will take a time to get going again. But as I said, I haven't seen those blooms for a very long time, so it's good to have them back. Very attractive, lovely colours, nice sort of shape. Yep, so coming on. So that's the Holey pots. Most things I would say are doing pretty good. Yes, that was expected, but you know, proof of the pudding and all that. You've still got to give these things a try. But certainly the Cattleyas and the Laelias seem to like their Holey pot. Not sure what this one's going to do yet. We shall see. But it's certainly growing on its new growths better than it was before. So it's an improvement. Now it might be that it could do with staying even more hydrated than that, and it can go in a normal pot, you know, with smaller pieces of bark, because they stay wet longer. Big one's got a lot of air around them, and with the Holey pots, an awful lot of air around them. But it's coming on. I've given it a change to try, and if that change doesn't work, I've got to give it time. You know, I mean, it probably needs 3 to 6 months to determine definitely whether or not it's better off now than it was before. You know, and then that's going to take me into winter. So chances are it's going to stay there now till at least early spring next year and do as well as it can. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. Okay, so that's an update on the Holey pots. I have missed one out, but that's one of my iffy plants, and it's not doing that well, so that's just I'll bring that back out if it starts looking a bit better than it does at the moment. I'm not sure it's going to make it, but all the ones that were expected to crack on seem to be doing pretty well, so yeah, good stuff. And I'm still attached, so it's still a bit fiddly filming, but I thought this was something I could do quite easily because all the plants are going to be in the same place, and I can put the camera down in between without getting it wet. And you know, as I said, moving around the grow room attached to a lead is not very good, but this is the sort of video I can do. So thanks for dropping by. See you next time.